And I just feel like our base has a lot more to offer our community than what we're actually giving them. And just a way to get more involved. And our base in Boston, there's a lot of musicians and stuff, and they would go and lead worship at the base, or people would go and like watch kids during church events. So like the church kind of knew YWAM Boston, but I always felt like there's more than just leading worship at a base, or there's more than just watching kids. And I think that we had some like practical knowledge to give the church. And so I thought that conversation kind of just, got buried under like the hectic aspects of the school. And then I went and led an outreach to Greece in the summer, and when I come back, we had 1 month before our fall school, and right when I come back from like a little bit of comp time, Aaron comes to me, he's like, okay, we're gonna start a class 1 day a week that's gonna start the same week as the DBS starts, and so you have 1 month to figure out how to get it done. And I was like, so I had no idea what I was doing, and obviously we have like the curriculum for the DBS, but to condense that into something that would just be 2 hours a week with people who may have like no no background of like biblical knowledge or anything like that. I was like, okay, there was a lot of time spent in prayer with like all of us as we were trying to figure this out, because how is this going to be possible? And then out of like a lot of discussions about like what are the core values of DBS that the people in the local church need, what are the needs of the local church. And one of the cool things is that where we are in Boston, it's actually in Somerville. It's really close to Harvard. It's really close to a lot of like Ivy League colleges, a lot of like, there's a lot of education there, but not a lot of reasonably priced education for the Bible. And not a lot of opportunity for like different denominations, or even it's really diverse as well, like ethnically diverse. And there's not a lot of opportunity for Brazilians and the El Salvadorians and the Haitians to come together and learn from each other. And so it was like really cool that like God was calling us to bring in all these different churches to learn about God and learn about the Bible. So in 1 month, through a lot of prayer and a lot of conversations, we put together a workbook, and we put together like how to communicate with the speakers that were coming about how to run the school once a week. And so some of like the goals that we wanted were similar, obviously, to the DBS, and I'm just going to run through them because it's a lot more simplified than what it would be in like the full school. And so the first is that people would have an overview of the story of God. So it's actually something that you don't actually get a lot when you're in church. Like, preachers give expository like teachings on like 4 or 5 verses, but they don't actually understand like what's going on in Genesis to Revelation. I know we all know that. So that was something that we really wanted to emphasize. To trace God's plan of redemption through the Bible, obviously, and like the one big 3-part question that we are always asking is, who is God, what is he doing in the earth, and what is our part in it? And I think like we would constantly like bring the class back to that every week. For people to be transformed by understanding God's character through the Word and learning how knowing God impacts them. So YWAM value number 1 and 2, know God and make him known. And then also learn effective tools for understanding the Bible. So inductive Bible study, as we all know, is like really valuable tool, and we incorporate that in like a small way. And so I'm going to just go through a little bit of the workbook. Yo should have emailed that to you guys. Did you guys get that? Okay. I accidentally emailed the wrong version. So I emailed a new updated version to Yo. Don't look at the other one because there's a lot of typos in it. I just have way too many documents on my computer. Get them all confused. And then I will have it up on the screen. So this is an old version that you guys can pass around and look at while I present. That's also not like the greatest like version as far as like formatting goes, but the content is pretty much the same. So we decided to create a workbook where students could have homework, their reading schedules, and just like be able to have kind of a resource after. Because what we noticed was that they were getting really, really great speakers. Like the same speakers in DBS would speak on Thursday nights in our evening DBS. And so most of the emphasis was on like listening to the speakers and not necessarily on like what like their application or being able to answer questions or having community. So we decided that a workbook would be helpful and almost essential for them to have a resource. So on their own time, whether they do their homework during the school or maybe they'll use it later after, they can have that as an option. And I also have an editable version if you want to translate it into whatever language. Yeah, so it's not with Adobe InDesign, don't worry, it's on Microsoft Word, so I think you can manage. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go through, like scroll through some of it. If you guys wanna pull it up on your phones or whatever you can. Yeah, so this is just table of content, nothing, overview of the Bible, sorry. And then, oh yeah, so we have like a little instruction on what inductive Bible study is, some like example questions for that, nothing too big. Geography, timeline, okay, sorry, this is all just intro stuff. Okay, so yeah, it's broken up the exact same as DBS. So for week 1, origins and worldview, so what we decided, what we actually really felt like the Lord was leading in, it's so basic and so practical, but to have 2 reading plans. And so we broke up like each day into a different reading plan. So one plan is like for like really awesome people who have full-time jobs that want to read the entire Bible in 12 weeks. Yeah, there's been a couple people that have been able to do that and I'm really inspired by them. But then there's another plan, Plan B. It's around like 3, 4, sometimes 5 chapters a day. And it just goes through some of the significant events of the week. So yeah, like all the significant events that are listed. And then I also broke up the Psalms throughout the time until it's over, instead of them having to read all the Psalms in one big chunk. And so then after that you have the significant events, the books that are covered, and then just a little timeline for them. I always tell the class to just go on Bible Hub or Bible Timeline, and then they can just fill it in, like just copying and pasting it. So I always give them that like resource to use. And then something that we felt like really, really important was for them to get an idea of what historical background was. And they're not gonna like get it to the extent that you get it in DBS or in like, you know, going to seminary, but just having an idea of what original audience is, like why an author would write a book, or just like the mindset of what people were going through. So we just have just an intro, like one piece of historical background. For the first week, it's just Abraham's religion and his background. So there's like a little piece of commentary, and then just very directed questions about it. So it's not like they're having to like come up with questions for themselves, or really, in a way, not have to figure out their own interpretation, but just like get them thinking about the passage or the scripture or the book as a whole in a new way that they haven't before. So yeah, and that doesn't normally take that long. First, I feel like when people come to like the first night, our orientation night, they're like, this is so much work. And then the next week they're like, oh, it only took like 15 minutes to do it all. It's really not like a lot of questions or anything. And then on the next page is just some application questions. So there's always a question about God's plan of redemption, and that's also a directed question. I'm not asking them like, how did you see God's plan of redemption? I ask like, how did you see God's plan of redemption through something specific? So it's like they can think, they don't have to like overthink anything. They're like, oh yeah, in Abraham I saw God do this. And then same with God's character and nature, and then just like an open-ended, how has the readings impacted you during the week? And then there's also, it's not, I actually don't have it fully in the workbook, Inductive Bible Study, but I have Inductive Bible Study like this for each week on a separate document, so I can email those to you. But what I started, so I'm actually running this in Pittsburgh. We don't have a DBS, like a full DBS in Pittsburgh, but I've been running this Bible class once a week in Pittsburgh with people on staff and then people in the local church. And I'm not able to get like the really dynamic speakers that we're able to get with like having like a DBS and being able to pay money for like Yo to come in or other people to come in. So what I've done is put more of an emphasis on group discussion and inductive Bible study. So I'll just give you an outline of like how I set up the night, and yeah. Should I write it down maybe? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna write it down. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. Should I clip this to me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, so we usually start off with like really basic worship, or I write really small. Hey Mom, you wanna come and write for me? My mom's in the house. This is Tanya, everyone. Okay, so usually we start off with worship or an icebreaker. And then, so if you don't have people that are like committed to leading worship every week, just do some kind of fun icebreaker or something like that. Then we review from the previous week, just get people's feedback, like how did God impact you? Like how did you see God's plan of redemption? Or just review. And then after that, so this is kind of something that's like a little bit different. That works. Okay, so after that we do a 20-minute lecture where we're introing the week. So you can just write intro. So it's just gonna be like, what are the books that are this week? Who's like the main original audience? What's some like important theme? Kind of like an overview of what's going on. Because what we do after that is break them up into small groups to discuss their inductive Bible study. And they don't have to come up with questions on their own. I have it for them, the passage, the questions. And so pretty much like the first 20-minute like part of lecture is to be able to give them context so that they can study the passage of scripture well. So write just IBS. IBS. Yeah, just write it somewhere. Okay, and so we had them like in different groups every week, but I also think that it would be really cool if like every week it was the same groups. If you guys decide to do this, like that would be up to you and how God is leading you into doing that. And then, so then we have like, give them feedback, so each group can give like a little bit of feedback from their time doing IBS. And then after that, there's usually about an hour for like the main bulk of the lecture. So whatever like the speaker feels like they want to talk about, just write lecture. That's all. You can sit down now.
Oh, I can?
Yeah. Everyone clap for Tanya. Yeah, so that would be, yeah, it's really simple. So just like small lecture, IBS, main part of the lecture. And so I found that the students doing the inductive Bible study, even though it takes down on the amount of lectures, so usually the night is 2 to 2.5 hours, even though we spend about 30 minutes doing this, it's actually really valuable because they learn like what are good questions, what are interpretation questions, like how can I look at this, and then even just learning from each other because people have such different backgrounds. It's really cool for, yeah, different denominations or ethnicities to discuss things and how they view different things. It's really awesome to see. So yeah, but like if you decide to do this, like ask the Lord, like maybe it would be different in like your culture, your community, like what would be the most effective thing. And then, yeah, so just, I'll run briefly through this, but there's, it doesn't take a lot to run the school really, like once you get it started. But every week you would need someone who's facilitating the class that's separate from the lecture, just like you would in like regular DBS. You need someone to like start, make sure people are on time, and to intro the speaker, get people to give feedback. You need, someone to like set up snack, and if you have a snack, to like be the hospitality person. And then another thing I do is meet with students in the school 2 times during the 12 weeks. So you're not going to be able to have like really serious one-on-ones with people like you would in like a YWAM school setting, but to be able to like go out to coffee or meet with someone at a park and just talk to them about like what they're learning, like have them give you feedback about, about the school and everything. And then, so does anyone have any questions on like this format or anything? I'm seeing if I ran through everything. Oh, so actually, before questions, I have like a little section because there were questions and like, actually, I used some of your questions to help me with the workbook, so they're being used, don't worry. But there were some like really cool things that I wanted to include, but I'm like, it would be too much for the students at this time, so I just put in like extra assignments. And we also give them a cultural backgrounds Bible. Obviously that would only work in like an English setting, but we give them that, and then like I write down articles for them that they can read that would help them understand that week better. And then, and all of their work can be done like in the workbook. And then it's on to the next week. So any questions? Yeah?
There's a might have missed this, but are they doing full out loud reads on their own? Like, is that?
Yeah, so they should have read pretty much the whole week before they come. So the schedule goes through like, so say you start your lectures on like a Monday, like every Monday night, and then so they should have read all of that like starting the previous Monday. So they'll have, before Pentateuch week, they'll have all of that read. Yeah. And then any other questions? Yeah.
When you have people sign up, how consistent are they for that whole 12 weeks?
Right. Okay. So in the first one, we had 30 to 35 people sign up, and by the end, we still had about 25 to 30. When it got closer to Christmas, like there was less people because it was in the fall. So but they were pretty consistent in coming. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, the ages, those pretty much all over the place. We had like, actually, I think in the last one in Boston, they had a 17-year-old. That was probably, he was in high school. Yeah, he was in high school. So we had like 17 to 60, 70, yeah. And then,
So when you say you gave them all a cultural background Bibles, is that what they use collectively all together at the group time?
They'll bring that and just read that. And I think it's an NIV, so, yeah.
Is that included in whatever the cost is?
Yeah, so we just have them, they just pay whatever it costs to print this and the Bible. So it's not like, there's no like profit or anything like that. Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. I think Easy, you had a question?
Well, I had a question in the charge.
Oh, right. Yeah, and if you you can honestly just use this as a PDF too. Like you wouldn't have to print it off. There's printers that will print it off for like $10 to $15. So it actually doesn't cost a whole lot to like print it, or you can just print it at your base. But if you want like a booklet, then it would cost a little more. But if you don't want to charge anything, then just use it as a PDF and go for it. Yeah, so we call it DBS Evening Edition. It's a mouthful, so if anyone has any ideas, if you want to change it, please feel free, because I've been contemplating this for a long time. If we were to change the name, what would we change it to? But yeah, that's what I call it right now. Yeah. Yes, yeah. On the last night we do we have a certificate. It says the base on it, and school leader signs it, but there's no official. It's only official under the base name, so.
Have you guys looked into the ability to possibly get action registered, or is it very impossible?
I actually haven't. That could be a possibility, but most people aren't in YWAM, but I know that there's some of the online courses you get certificates, so it's probably something I could look into. Yeah?
Has anybody from the base taken it? Just
Yeah, so when I did it in Pittsburgh, most of the people were the staff. Yeah, because they don't run a Bible school and they're really committed to the ministry in the city and they're like, I don't want to go to a DBS. So maybe they want to go to a DBS now, hopefully. And then, yeah, any other questions?
How long does it run for?
It runs alongside the DBS, so 11 or 12 weeks depending on how long your DBS runs. So it like corresponds, like the same week that the DBS is in Origins and Worldview, the DBS evening will be in Origins and Worldview.
Okay, so if they're once a week, then
Mhm.
picking chunks of it that
Yeah.
once a week, so
Mhm.
just getting certain parts of
Yeah, they're getting like very surface, but yeah. Yeah.
You probably already said it, but it's the teacher who's teaching in the week for the curriculum.
Yes, for the most part, yeah, unless, actually I don't think there's ever been a speaker that's been like, I can't do it, but if they don't, then a staff person will end up teaching for that week. Yeah. All right. Oh yeah,
How do
sorry.
you guys like get the word out and recruit a lot? Like,
Yeah, so there's just going to different churches in the area, like asking them if like you can speak like at the end of service, or like at our base, like everyone goes to a different church, so getting them to like bring flyers. And oh yeah, I'm gonna pass around a paper for people to write their emails. So I have actually like a template for like a flyer you can make if you just want to use that. You don't have to put any effort into it. So if you write your email, I'll share like schedules with you. I'll share an editable version of the workbook and then some other files that I put together. Oh, yeah, sorry. Here.
So, we just want to share like a little small just testimony of how the DBS Evening Edition is created for those who can't do like a full-time 5 months, who can take their time off from work and family. And so it's geared towards them, but also we've had young people and young adults who've just been so interested in DBS. And so, so a couple of our students were like around the age of 30 and they did the DBS Evening Edition and they were so intrigued and so interested that they decided to do DTS. So they went and they did, now they're going into the missions field. So our heart behind DBS Evening is to really give exposure to the church that the missions field could be possible and that the DBS could be another resource for them. That is all.
Thanks. Oh, don't go in. Okay.
just give them a round of applause.
Sorry for one over.
Yeah, but one more question.
Oh.
You guys charge like a nominal fee?
Yeah.
For the printing, she said.
Just for the printing costs, really, yeah.
After you ran some numbers, what did that fee come out to?
So the workbook is about, depending on your printer, you can print it for $15. So if they want to charge you more than that, tell them that it's been printed for cheaper. And then the Bible costs $30. So we charge around like 75. I think maybe this last time we charged 80 something for, yeah. So it's really not like that like unreasonable for like people in America to do it. And we've noticed that when people pay, like they're more committed to. So like when you have something to offer, you're like, oh, you get a Bible and a workbook. So then they're a little more committed.
And snacks.
And snacks, of course, snacks, yeah.
I just want to thank you for realizing that this is even a need in your own community and taking the time to put this whole thing together. Like, this is a lot of work to reframe a program because in Africa, like Tim mentioned, like we have a lot of preaching that's just false teaching, preaching. That's one of our like heart pieces is to try and get into the community more with these biblical foundations and just make it steady, make it available to pastors. And I'm so blessed by this and blessed that I get to take this back and actually look at how we can implement this. So I just really thank you for
Yeah,
that.
thank you. It's encouraging.
Wow, that is so good. Rose, do you guys have a PowerPoint you can come and set up? Yeah, I was just so excited to hear about that program and get to know it a little bit, become more familiar with it as I was looking over that manual. And that's, like you said about South Africa, in China, I think that manual will be flying off the printer, because when we go and teach inductive Bible study, just like a couple hour class with a underground church, their pastor comes up and says something like, we're part of a network of 60 underground churches in this city that has no resources. Can you give anything to us? And we have little like bookmarks with like the principles of inductive Bible study or something. But when that gets translated, that is going to be fire in China. So I'm so excited for that, and what's going to do in Africa, and continue to do in Boston and Pittsburgh, and hopefully a lot of other places as well.
Awesome.
Okay, you guys ready? John
Yeah.
wants you to plug that, use that as well for the recording. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the Queenstown girls, who will share more about the internship that DBS has used in different parts of the world. And here's Rose.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. So my name is Rose, and this is Selena, and we are from YWAM Queenstown from New Zealand. And yeah, we've just been on this journey of exploring the DBS internship. And both Selena and I participated in this. I have participated in this for the last 2 years, and Selena just recently participated in this as a student this past year. So we're just going to share a bit about what happened with the internship.
Cool. So what is the DBS internship? So it's basically you are a student doing or taking DBS, and then you go on outreach to a new location, to a base, and you run or pioneer the DBS there for 3 months. So I did my DBS in Queenstown, April to June, and then July to September, I was in Papua New Guinea, and I ran and pioneered the DBS there as a staff, or as we call it, as an intern. And it's a program where we also get for outreach like U of M credits.
Awesome. So almost everyone in this room is, part of different bases. And so what we want to share with you is like, why have this DBS internship incorporated into your DBS at your base? And so one of the main benefits of this is, unlike a typical DTS outreach where you're in a community for 2 weeks at a time, you actually get to be with students in another region and get to pour into them for 3 months. And with my personal experience, it was absolutely amazing just to see the growth in the students, and just how we can use the same materials in first world nations to third world nations or other DBS locations. And so with our base in YWAM Queenstown, we've had a lot of DTS outreach teams go to Papua New Guinea. And so this past year, we had the amazing opportunity to pioneer a DBS in Papua New Guinea. And so not only was it beneficial in terms of helping raise up a school for this base, but we also made amazing relationships between the two bases, and got to connect with students who were spread out all over the nation to further missions. And Selena was a part of the outreach team for that DBS. So just through a bunch of connections, she took a bunch of our students into the middle of nowhere where missionaries have not been before, and they got to experience pouring out into these villages, and they had up to 230 baptisms just from this one outreach. And so this is furthering missions more than we have ever comprehended. So with a typical DTS outreach team, you take a team from usually a first world nation, and then you go and with a contact to reach these locations. But the one problem with that is that you can't necessarily go into regions that you're not aware of.
because like the only way in is having a contact. Well, like after having 3 months of building relationship with these students, like not only like do you have new contacts and new locations, but like you get to go with students. And so these Papua New Guineans were able to minister and be missionaries in their own country. Like that is like taking missions to a level we've never seen before. And so like it's just amazing to see the growth and the fruit from all this. And so not only that, we get to like add to the mission mindset with the DBS. So we get to multiply what has already started. And thankfully, so this past year, we raised all of these students. And so we're gonna have these students as staff on the next DBS the following year, which is really exciting because now we're going to have new staff. And as YWAM Queenstown, like part of our agreement was to go back for 3 consecutive years so that as a result, we can give them the tools so that they can run their own schools many years from now, which is really exciting.
I just want to highlight some benefits for these students who turn like to staff or intern. So it's just like a training ground to go on outreach and like do the DBS again, but you have this different perspective now because you have just done it and you're now able to actually pass on what you have just learned during your own DBS. So growing in leadership, because I was then now in PNG actually the small group leader. So I practiced in Queenstown several times, but then I was actually a small group leader in Papua New Guinea, as well as just taking responsibilities in helping out with the work duties or even teaching. So Papua New Guinea was then an opportunity for me to teach a morning on on different topics. So I could actually put into practice what I just learned during my DBS. As we said, you get some course credits, and it's really cool because I could totally understand the students. I just came from DBS. I just came from being a student. I knew what they are going through because I've just done it as a student. And what is really cool, like knowing that you're going actually on outreach and knowing that you're going through the Bible again, totally changed your mentality, because I then knew that I'm not going to read the Bible in Queenstown and then that's just like knowledge for myself, but I knew I'm going to pass it on to the students. So I had this different mindset of actually learning things to pass it on then to the students in Papua New Guinea on outreach. And also, I mean, benefit for an intern, you're actually not only reading the Bible once in 3 months, but like twice in 6 months, which is awesome just to go through it again with that knowledge you already have.
So I'll just share a little bit about my experience just going into the DBS. I did my DBS last year into April 2017, and it's incredible because before I even got to the school, Jeremy Bolton, who is our base leader, sent out an email for possible outreach locations, and I knew it was already stirring in my spirit. I was like, I need to go on outreach after DBS, but wasn't entirely certain. And so when he sent the email, he said it was either going to be in Samoa, Solomon Islands, or PNG. And it was funny because like when I initially looked at it, I was kind of confused because like our base usually does, you know, outreach teams to Papua New Guinea. So I was like, okay, that is a logical place to end up. Well, I just knew like in my spirit that it was supposed to be in Solomon Islands. And on day 1 of my DBS, Jeremy Bolton was like, and the outreach is in Solomon Islands. And I almost fell out of my seat. I was so excited. And just to add on to what Selena was sharing, like that started my mentality off in the DBS that it's not about learning all this information for me, but it's about multiplying it, and like what I'm learning is ultimately going to be shared with others. And so what was amazing is I jumped into staffing, and the following year I got to be a part of this team to pioneer this DBS in Papua New Guinea. And I had the privilege to staff Selena's school this past year, and so there were a lot of benefits with being a staff on these outreach teams to pioneer these new schools. And so one of the benefits, as I was sharing before, is that you get to be in one location for an extended period of time. And so that just gives you an opportunity to like really pour into the students. And not only that, it was amazing like just how much I got to get to know Selena an additional 3 months on top of her DBS. And so like just between being a part of staffing our school to doing it, just pioneer this DBS in Papua New Guinea, we were able to be more effective in ministry just because of the bond that we had over the course of the school. And also just with like on a logical standpoint, like if as a base you are looking at potential staff candidates for future DBSs, like this is kind of like a testing ground to see how the students do in an environment that isn't as intense as perhaps like staffing at the base. And also like it's not like the students are not tied down to like a 2-year agreement, so then they can kind of get an idea of like, is this something I would like to invest my life in down the road? And just like and so the team that we were a part of, it was really amazing just to see how like we were able to form those relationships over the course of the school, and as a result we had such a strong and diverse team come together and be able to plant this DBS in Papua New Guinea.
So apparently I passed my internship because I'm going back to staff for the next 2 years in Queenstown. It was actually the time when I was in Papua New Guinea where I really felt God calling me back to staff and to be part of DBS for the future. So it could actually like be a way to recruit staff. Obviously we had some challenges, so communication was a huge thing because we were all like doing DBS in Queenstown, but at the same time trying to set up in Queenstown, in Papua New Guinea, this new DBS, and the communication between our base and the base in Mount Hagen in Papua New Guinea was rather difficult, but I mean that's anyway when we are communicating overseas. One huge thing was the whole application process for the students in Papua New Guinea, because it was not sure, is the application going through the Queenstown base or is it going through the base in Papua New Guinea, which was super difficult. We did not know how many students would come, like is anybody coming anyway, or are we there without having any students? So that was a challenge for us, especially for our leader, not knowing who is coming to take DBS. And in addition, it's a huge workload, like planning a DBS in a different location while you're running a DBS at the same time. Obviously, it's a lot of work to do. But I guess also once you're kind of into that mindset, and we also started to have like workbooks, or we want to, I guess, have some points you anyway have to work through. Once you have done that, you're able to continue doing that. So my goal is actually then to take the Papua New Guinean students to pioneer as an internship somewhere else in the Pacific, a new DBS, which is really awesome because you can from there on just continue with like pioneering DBS schools.
Yeah, and so we do have a couple of areas. If you are potentially considering to start a DBS in another base or another area, like these are a couple of things that we found were helpful in the process to start the DBS in Papua New Guinea. And of course, the very first one, that we saw that was resulted in a lot of fruit was prayer. And Selena and I, we were actually very intentional about praying and fasting every week before the school started. And just the other night, we were going over words that we got during that time, and it was amazing to see that every single word that we got ended up coming true. And so there's something very powerful, I believe, in praying and really like sowing in a lot, specifically in between you and God, and like what you're going to embark on, because I think that will set the framework and the ground in which like you're going to be harvesting in. And so, do you want a little bit of fruit or do you want a lot of fruit? And just from our experience, like prayer is something that is very important in this process. And so, just as Selena was saying, there's just a lot of little details that we need to prepare for. And so, even just thinking about the culture you're about to go in, like one thing that I saw in my experience in Solomon Islands is the people are very relational and they love things like little gifts. And so something in the preparation process is we like brought little keychains from New Zealand to the students, and there's something about just those little like ideas that really set us up for success, just with like bonding with the students. So just like brainstorming those things are like very helpful. And also like in that transition process, like Selena was an intern, and so a big part of like having a very balanced team dynamic is to make sure you're training those interns as staff. And so instead of like having this hierarchy, just recognize that we're all in this together, we're all on the same playing field, and that really helped our team be very balanced. And so ideally, like one of our primary goals is to get local DBS leaders. So this next year, we're going to have a lot more Papua New Guineans lead this following DBS. And by doing that, it's like you're creating that support system, that framework, so that they'll be able to carry on the DBS themselves. I guess, and that's basically all that we have to share with you guys. We have, this testimony of not only successfully implementing and establishing a DBS in Solomon Islands, but also in Papua New Guinea. And, we personally believe that, since we were able to do it, like we know you guys can do it too. And just to really consider like using this internship as a way to cultivate your students and to inspire your students to be able to pour out what has been poured into them. It bears so much fruit and it has long-lasting effects. So just consider bringing that to your bases and incorporating this into your program. Yes, you have a question?
So this is essentially your outreach for the DBS. So are there students that did some kind of outreach who didn't do an internship, or is it just everybody who does that as their outreach, or they don't do it outreach?
You either do it or you don't do an outreach.
Okay, so outreach is essentially calling.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so this is an optional outreach, which is really nice because a lot of the students who are part of it, it's like their heart is already into it. And so it just naturally just comes together. You have any more questions?
No, that's really good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any comments from anyone else that's been on internship?
Yeah, and
who else has done that?
Internship. I was with the Simone team, a couple.
very nice. Yeah, thank you very much.
If I can shoot just a short testimony, I led a DTS outreach in Papua New Guinea at a base just a couple of weeks after most of the finished the DBS in I was with the Louisiana guys, and just leading the team with some of those guys that just graduated DBS is incredible, super beneficial to have them come with us, and the way they were sharing out the word of God to their own people was incredible. But also have those guys be like wanting to get involved more with the DBS from that base, and one of the staff is talking to me at the moment about coming to Australia. He wants to come in September to help me lead the DBS in Australia from Papua New Guinea, from one of those internships.
Well, and actually, it was really cool because there's a DTS outreach team that's going to that very location that no missionaries have been. So now it's opening more missions opportunities.
Is there another question or comment from the back, y'all?
About outreach.
Okay.
Just share, please share.
Okay. Would they like to come up and share?
Would you like to share about outreach?
What? No. Turn off.
Maybe I misunderstood. About church leaders, can you share anything on that topic of time now or maybe later?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Come on up. Let's hear about Church DBS from Jeju Island. Okay.
네, 반갑습니다. 여러분 함께해서 반갑습니다. 되게 좋습니다.
Happy to be with you all. And, yeah.
Nice to meet you. Put this on. Okay. Sorry, just for the recording. You can keep going.
Sure.
저희는 한국에는 제주 베이스에는 4개의 말씀 사역이 있어요.
There's 4 scriptural ministries in Jeju, Korea.
SBS와 BCC와
There's SBS, BCC, DBS,
그리고 센터가 존재하고 있어요.
and the SBS Center.
저는 그 센터에서 사역을 하고 있어요.
And I do my ministry in the SBS Center.
그 센터에는 6개의 팀이 있는데요.
There's 6 teams in the SBS Center,
그 중에 하나가 DBS 팀이 있습니다.
and one of them is the DBS team.
오늘 나누고 싶은 것은 이 DBS 팀이 하고 있는 일들을 잠깐 나누고 싶었어요.
What I want to share today is the things that we do as in the DBS team.
제가 2년 전에 교회에서 DBS를 시작했습니다.
2 years ago, I started a DBS in a church.
총 32주의 시간입니다.
It lasts for 32 weeks.
그러나 2년에 나누어서 진행하고 있습니다.
It happens over 2 years.
구약의 16주, 신약의 16주 과정을 진행하고 있습니다.
We spend 16 weeks on the Old Testament and another 16 weeks on the New Testament.
교회에서는 그 말씀을 아주 쉽게 배우길 원해요.
The church wants to teach the word of God very easily. They want it to be very easy.
과제하는 건 또 별로 안 좋아하죠.
And they don't like to do their homeworks.
그래서 저는 DBS에 이제 있는 과제를 최대한 간단하게 줄였어요.
So I try to make the homework that's required of DBS as little as possible.
지금 저희가 받았었던 매뉴얼과 조금 많이 변경이 되었는데요.
So it's very different from the manuals that we all have.
예전에는 성품을 찾는 것과 미션 포인트 찾는 거 이런 게 있었죠.
So previously in the past, we had homework where people had to find God's properties and mission points.
저희는 성경을 읽을 때 성품적인 것들을 많이 잘 찾아가도록 유도했어요.
We try to focus people's attention on finding God's personalities.
그리고 우리가 함께 알고 있는 그 특별 과제를 활동이나 나눔으로 변경했습니다.
And we changed our special assignments into a time of collaborative work.
특별 과제까지 할 수 있는 시간적 여유가 없는 사람들이요.
Because those people didn't have the time to do their own special assignments.
저희는 토요일 아침 9시 반부터 5시 반까지 진행했는데요.
We start on Saturdays, Saturday morning 9:30 to 5 o'clock, 5 p.m.
4시간 강의를 하고
We do 4 hours of lecture.
나머지 시간은 소그룹으로 진행했습니다.
And the rest of the time is small groups.
소그룹에서 함께 성경을 읽을 수 없기 때문에 미리 읽어오라고 진행했고요.
And we don't have time in the small groups to read the Bible together, so we asked them to read the Bible in their own time.
함께 할 수 있는 활동들을 하거나
So during the small groups, we do things together
그 주에 맞는 나눔의 이야기들을 주었어요.
or give them discussion topics where everyone can talk about something related to what they're learning in that week.
이 소그룹의 인도를 하는 분에 따라 많은 차이가 있었지만
So it depends a lot on the small group leaders,
굉장히 좋은 시간들이 많았었습니다.
but the whole small group session was very beneficial for everyone.
그 활동하는 거에 있어서는 임팩트 있는 활동들을 많이 진행했는데요.
And we put a lot of effort into impactful events.
저희는 SBS도 하고 BCC를 한 사람도 있었기 때문에
Some of the staff did SBS and BCC,
그 안에 있는 활동들을 많이 이 특별 과제에 함께 넣었어요.
so they tried to include those special events in people's special assignments.
그래서 열왕기를 배우는 시간에는
So for instance, when people were learning about kings,
저희가 왕의 잔치라는 것들을 했습니다.
we included a program called the King's Party.
혹시
Yeah, the
아시는
King's
분이
Party.
있을 수 있겠지만
There may be some people who know about it.
한 명 한 명이 왕 한 명 한 명이 되는 거예요.
It's where each student becomes a king.
그 왕을 공부해 오고
So they study about that king
그 왕에 대한 표현을 연극같이 합니다.
and they try to perform a small skit to show the story of that king.
네, 이것이 저희가 했던 거 유튜브에 올라와 있긴 하지만
So there's some of these videos on YouTube.
혹시 뭐 보실 수 있으면 보시면 좋을 것 같아요.
If you guys would like to look at it, we could help you with that.
그리고 저희가 이제 그 교회에서 할 때 가장 장점 중에 하나는 DTS를 하지 않은 분들이 이 말씀을 쉽게 접근할 수 있다는 거예요.
One of the benefits of doing a DBS in a church is that you don't have to do a DTS to be able to understand the Bible within the church.
저희가 제주에 이 교회는 서울에 있는 교회죠. 제주야 좀 떨어져 있어요.
The church that we did the DBS in, it's actually very far from Jeju Island. It was in Seoul.
저희 스태프들 중에 3명이 매주 올라갔습니다.
So 3 of our staffs always went to Seoul every week.
그리고 그 교회에서 있었던 사람들이 이제 같이 스텝으로 조인되었어요.
And some of the members of the church were also part of the staff there.
그 스텝 교육을 위해서 또한 10주 정도를 저희가 매주 교육을 위해서 올라갔어요.
We spent about 10 weeks for staff training at the church.
그래서 같이 함께 그 스텝으로 사역을 했었죠.
And we staffed with them together.
그 저는 이 말씀이 살아 있다라는 것들에 대해서 다시 증명되었던 시간이었던 것 같아요.
I think, as I look back, I think this was a time where I could use this as proof that the Word of God is alive.
월요일부터 금요일까지 일을 하고 토요일 날 와서 이 학교를 하는 게 쉽지 않은 상황이었어요.
It's very difficult for everyone, including the students and the staff, to be working on Mondays to Fridays and then come on Saturdays to learn about the Scripture.
60명의 학생 중에
There were 60 students.
뭐 20대부터 70 이상의 그 학생까지 포괄하고 있었죠.
Their ages were all from like 20 to 70, all the way from there.
그 중에 많은 분들이 병에 걸려 있었어요.
And many of them were sick.
그런데 어떤 환자분은 암이 거의 말기였는데
One of them were suffering from cancer, and they were in the 3rd stage.
체력이 안 돼서 수술도 못 받고 있는 상황이었어요.
And that person wasn't able to even get surgery for it because he was so tired.
DBS가 시작돼서 저희 그 같이 함께 하자고 많이 콜링했어요.
Well, people brought that person to DBS because they wanted to do DBS with him
처음에
or
올
her.
때는 많이 이렇게 얼굴도 까맣고 굉장히 아파 보였는데
When the person came to the DBS, 남자분이세요?
여자분.
When she started DBS, she was very thin.
근데 이 말씀을 읽고 그 생명력이 이분 안에 들어가는 것들이 저희가 한 주 한 주 보였어요.
But as she studied the Bible, we could see that she was gaining health just from reading the Bible.
스태프들이 늘 기도하고 있었거든요.
Because every week, all the staff were praying for her.
14주째 때
So on the 14th week,
그분이 다시 이제 수술 받기 위해서 검사를 받으러 가셨는데
she went to the hospital to get her health check.
암이 없어졌다고 하더라고요.
and they told her that she didn't have anything left. She was all healed.
하나님의 이 살아계신 말씀이 교회에 더 많이 들어야 되겠다라고 많이 느꼈어요.
So we all felt that the living word of God should be planted even more in churches.
그리고 저희 이 팀에서 저희 센터에서 하는 것 중에 또 한 가지 일이 있는데요.
So another ministry that we do in the SBS Center
바로 어린이들에게 이 말씀 사역을 가르치는 거예요.
is for us to teach the Bible to little kids.
저희 뒤에 있는 또 다른 성옥 간사님께서 시작하셨는데요.
It was started by Song Ok, different from Song Wook here.
저희가 이 DBS를 하고 나서 이 틀로 어린이들에게 맞췄어요.
So after we made this DBS structure, we changed it so we could fit it into teaching children.
아이들이 성경을 함께 읽고
So the kids read the Bible together.
함께 그 말씀에 맞는 활동을 하면서
They do activities that are related to what they just learned,
하나님의 이야기들을 배워 나가고 있는 거예요.
and they learn about the stories of God.
그 아이들이 하나님의 이야기를 집에 가서도 말하고요.
And so the children, when they go back to their homes, they talk about the stories of
친구들에게도
the Bible.
가서 하나님의 이야기들을 하고 있는 것들을 보았어요.
They talk about that with their friends.
그래서 이 어린 아이 때부터 계속해서 하나님의 저희가 창세기부터 시작했는데 이 하나님의 이야기들을 계속해서 배워간다는 그 놀라움과 또 이 말씀 안에서 그 아이들이 계속해서 자라고 변화되어지는 것들을 볼 수 있었습니다.
So as we started from Genesis, we could see that these kids were having life-changing moments as they were learning about the Bible.
특별히 이 어린이 사역을 하는 것을 페이스북에서 어떤 선교사님이 보셨어요.
One of the missionaries saw that we were doing this to little kids on Facebook.
저희가 아줌마 팀이라고 하는데요.
So we call it the Ajumma team. It actually means like old woman team in
전부
Korean.
결혼하신 아주머니들이었어요.
All the mothers were already married.
그분들이 인도네시아에 가서 그 어린이 사역을 가르쳐주고 함께 활동하고 돌아왔습니다.
So those missionaries were in Malaysia. They were doing children's ministries there, and they returned to Korea.
그래서 저희가 더 많은 일들을 하기 위해서 계속 노력하고 있습니다.
So yeah, we're trying to develop new ways for us to study the Bible. So everyone.
저희가 자료는 많이 있는데
We have a lot of resources,
영어로가 없어요.
but it's not in English.
그래서 혹시 번역을 해서 쓰시겠다면 저희가 다 드릴 수 있습니다.
So if you guys want the resource, although it's in Korean, and you guys want to translate it, then you can always ask for it.
그 한 가지 정보를 드린다면
And another point,
제가 이제 돌아가서 우리가 영어 공부를 많이 하자고 얘기할 거예요.
we're gonna talk to all the other staff that we should study the English a lot more.
제주 베이스에서는 저희가 이 말씀 관련 사역자가 거의 40명 가까이 있습니다.
So in Jeju, there's 40 staff who are all dedicated to studying the scripture.
특별히 제가 속해 있는 센터에는 23명의 사역자가 있어요.
Especially in the SBS Center, there's 23 staff right now.
저희의 비전은 온 열방 가운데 하나님의 말씀이 흥왕하는 게 저희의 비전입니다.
Our vision is to send all these staff to all the different nations.
그래서 어느 곳에서든 저희를 요청하면 저희가 달려갑니다.
So wherever you are at, if you want us to come, then we'll come to you.
저희는 YMO이기 때문에 어떤 재정적으로 일하지 않아요.
Because we're YWAMers, we don't care about money.
그래서 저도 다다음 주에 이제 중국으로 또 들어가는데요.
So 2 weeks from now, I'm going to China.
그래서 중국안이 지금 어렵지만 불렀기 때문에 저희가 달려갑니다.
It's China, the political atmosphere in China is really difficult right now, but despite that, we're going to China because God called us to do that.
저희가 느끼는 건 이 DBS 툴이 굉장히 어느 곳에 가서도 다양한 모든 곳에 잘 적용되고 사람들이 쉽게 하나님의 말씀을 배운다는 거에 큰 장점을 계속해서 배우고 있어요.
We're learning that the DBS tool is very useful for no matter like where you're from, what you're learning. The DBS tool is useful for anyone.
여러분들이 혹시 학교하면서 어떤 사역을 진행할 때 저희와 함께하길 소망합니다.
If you guys are starting up new schools, we would like to be part of that as well, together.
저희도 영어를 열심히 하겠지만
So we'll study English a lot harder.
여러분들 사역 안에 혹시 이 통역자 같이 할 수 있는 사람이 있다라면
But if you guys have a Korean translator at your place,
언제든지 저희와 함께 사역하면 좋겠습니다.
then yeah, it would be a lot easier for us as well to come to your places.
저는 이 DBS가 온 열방에 확장되는 일에 큰 관심이 많아요.
I have a very big passion for DBS to expand into the world.
네, 여러분들이 함께 그 일들을 같이 진행하면 좋겠습니다.
And I would like for us to cooperate together.
감사합니다.
Thank you.
혹시 질문
Are there any questions? Yeah.
When you were talking about church DBS and
교회 DBS 이야기하실 때
quick enough, you did that
어느
one
정도
day a week, so it was a Saturday.
일주일에 한 번 토요일 날만 한 거죠. Just once a week on Saturdays.
What was the day schedule? It was like a long day.
스케줄을 한번 이야기해 달라고 했는데.
저희가 아침 9시부터 시작해요.
So it starts at 9:30, ends at 5 o'clock.
그래서 12시까지 강의가 진행돼요.
So there was lecture from 9:30 to 12 o'clock until lunch.
12시부터 1시까지 점심을 먹습니다.
From 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. it was lunch.
1시부터 3시까지 다시 한번 강의가 진행돼요.
And from 1 to 3 it was lecture again.
그리고 이 3시부터 5시까지
From 3 to 5
5시까지 소그룹
that was small groups.
소그룹으로 진행돼요. 그리고 저희가 또 한 가지는 저희 한국만의 특별한 사역이 있어요.
And also
특별한 사역이 있어요.
in Korea there's a special ministry.
바로 직장인 사역인데요.
It's called Ministry for
저희가
People Who Have Jobs.
비즈니스 이글이라는 사역을 해요.
It's called Business Eagle.
그래서 거기는 비즈니스 DTS도 있고요.
So there's a business DTS in Korea.
비즈니스 SBS도 있고요.
Oh, there's a business SBS
상담학교도 있고.
for FCM.
FCM?
Yeah.
근데 거기에 저희가 DBS를 이제 시작했어요.
And we started a DBS for businessmen as well.
거기는 이틀 동안 진행되고요.
It happens
금요일과
for
토요일 이틀
it happens every twice a week, Fridays and Saturdays.
금요일 저녁부터 토요일 날 3시 정도까지 진행돼요.
So that one starts on Friday afternoon until Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Is this a registered DBS?
이게 DBS
이건 DBS 컬입니다.
yeah, this is registered DBS. Yeah. Let's get this up.
All right, thank you guys. It's so encouraging to hear what's happening in Jeju Island. And I do want to honor Eric as well. Thank you so much, Eric, for making it possible to have fun here. We're so glad our brothers and sisters from Korea are here with us, and we're so glad that the language barrier is not holding us back from fellowship and meeting you guys. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to break in just a minute, and then when we come back, I want to put us in small groups to brainstorm a little bit. We have one other thing we wanted to bring up in this meeting, though, and that is there's an outreach registered for DBS as well as the internship now. So internships are a great strategic tool, especially if your base has a partnership with another base on a pioneer or a frontier location, and you can send teams. You know you're going to be able to send them back maybe 2, 3, 4 times, and that's a model that that Kona to Samoa and now Queenstown to PNG and Solomon Islands has really developed well. But I think the best way is if we know we can be sending at least a second team, maybe a third team back so their staff are developed and so they're not left high and dry when the outreach team is gone. In China, we first went and we weren't planning on running an outreach because by the end of the first school, Becca was going to be like 6 months pregnant, and we were thinking, okay, we'll just leave right after the school and come back later. But a few weeks into the school, some of the students came and said, when were you going to tell us about outreach? And we were like, well, we're not thinking we're going to run an outreach. And they were like, we have to run an outreach. We have to learn to share what we've been receiving. So we kind of had an emergency staff meeting with Easy and Crystal, who were there for the school, and with Becca and myself, and we decided, I guess we could do a month-long outreach, and we can leave when, I think Becca would have been about 6 or 7 months pregnant, and Crystal and Easy already had tickets home and stuff. So we planned a month-long outreach, and Easy and Crystal took the first team up to the hill tribes in China, to a people group that God had told Easy about while he was still in Costa Rica, before he knew about the DBS starting in China. And we worked with the house church. Becca and I worked with the house church groups in Kunming. Got to teach in an underground seminary where there was lots of different minority people groups that don't have Bibles in their own languages, that have no known believers. But we got there and like, oh, this guy's got to be a believer, but he hasn't told Joshua Project yet. So it was really neat to get to work with these guys, and it kind of put in our hearts a desire to really develop the outreach. So it's finally registered with the University of the Nations. When you register your schools, you can register the school and the outreach all together, or you can add the outreach later. And the form has all been emailed to you guys to look over and consider, especially if you want to take teams to locations that don't have YWAM bases, that maybe won't run an internship or something like that. Because we were able to send teams to Malaysia and actually plant churches that are still going on today, thanks to the DBS students that were going out on the streets all morning and evangelizing, and then coming back to the church building and leading Bible studies, and then handing it over to the local Malaysian believers. And it's just such an encouraging thing to see the students really take up that mantle of teacher, because learning and teaching is so interconnected. I think Kim even talked about that this morning, about how a teacher has to be a learner. We have to love learning. And so as the students got the heart for learning, the natural overflow is that they wanted to be teaching. And so the outreach curriculum is designed to guide students on a path to becoming competent and confident speakers. And then for those that are leading those outreaches, it's a formula to be able to assess and make sure the students are really pushing themselves, and a good way to evaluate where a student is in learning to do the Bible overview, because that's the first thing they learn to teach, and then develop some of their own topical teachings, and then even begin to develop curriculum on their own after they consider the audience that they're sent to, who they're working with, and what their needs are. Similar to what Kim was talking about this morning, we need to think about what their needs are and how to most accurately reach their needs. So we're going to break for 7 minutes, so come back at 3, and then when we come back, we'll get into small groups with different bases and just begin to brainstorm what would some of these programs look like at your base. What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What are the locations that you envision for your base? And then we'll pray for one another. All right, see you soon.